If you can stop people from doing wrong by using torture, would you do it or not?
May all voting against please raise your placards high.
The question that we have to ask ourselves today is, why does the world hate inhumane practices? The war against terror has brought about a great change in our worldview of things. The war against torture has shown us that when inhumane practices practiced by terrorists are applied on our own citizens, is morally reprehensible, is morally audacious, and is something that we simply cannot accept. The delegate would like to address the fundamental question within what you have raised. That is the assumption that torture is effective. But as many delegates has really pointed out, does torture really ensure the security of humanity? In this case, my response is no. Torture simply makes the international community stoop to the level of the terrorists.
Some enemies are not citizens of the nations that are withholding them. And since they have abused a few national rights, this delegate is thinking terrorists at the moment. If they have abused other human rights, this delegate feels that nations should abuse their human rights, an eye for an eye.
Is the delegate aware of the fact that governments don't just torture enemies of the state?
Yes, this delegate is aware that governments do not torture enemies of their own state, but also other enemies if they are captured, because they pose a threat to our nation's security. Some nations wish to keep information on internal enemies or infidels, as this delegate would like to call them, because they pose a threat to our national security, and this delegate would not want enemies, so that our beautiful nation will not be tortured or threatened.
Torturing prisoners of war from different nations is against international law, and the torturers are subject to conviction by the International Court of Justice.
Oh, this delegate is aware, and this delegate would like delegate of the Holy See to look at America and a few other nations, which this delegate would not like to mention.
The delegate of India must fail this resolution. His main reason for doing this is because of Clause 5. This resolution waits for things to happen before taking action. As an example, take 9/11. If you could stop that from happening, would you stop it, or would you wait for it to happen before you took action? This resolution cannot pass because it does not take action before the event occurs. To stop that, you need to use torture. If you use torture, you can get the information you need and effectively stop the problem.
The delegate assuming that all subjects of torture are surely involved in these illegal activities before he actually interrogates them?
Not all are, but his main point is that things that are illegal and are creating such problems like 9/11, if you could stop that, would you or wouldn't you, before the event took place? By hurting one person, you save millions, maybe thousands.
Is the delegate of India supporting torture of any degree? And what if the subject of torture doesn't even have the information?
The delegate of India's views on torture are that it should be used when necessary. This resolution stops it completely, and therefore he cannot agree. Because to some extent, torture is needed when you need information. If you can't use torture, there's no method this resolution gives to obtain that information. Thus, the resolution is pointless.
Thank you.
Amnesty International believes that torture is not needed and is inefficient, hence believes that action needs to be taken place. The delegate is sure that almost all delegates in this House does not believe the use of torture on a fellow civilian. So why should it be any different for the detainees? Therefore urges all member states to pass this resolution. Thank you.
Would the delegate agree with the statement that it is better to risk the life of infidels' human rights to save the lives of a million?
Could the chair ask the delegates to rephrase the question?
Yes. Delegate of Slovenia, please rephrase your question.
Would the the delegate agree with this statement? Kill one, save 1,000.
The delegate will try to interpret that in the best way possible. The delegate feels that
House, please come to order.
the killing one will not justify the killing of thousands. Thank you.
Somewhere in this world right now, right at this moment, people have been kicked by the police boots, applied to electricity shocks, suspended by the legs from the roof, and inflicted with bullet injuries. These victims have been subjected to torture by police and other law enforcement. Brazil strongly believes that, apart from providing physical and mental relief to the victims and advocating voluntary funds to support rehabilitation centers, the most critical thing right now is for medical and legal experts to obtain relevant and accurate and reliable statements from torture victims in order to establish valid evidence that can be used in court cases against torturers for prosecution. Brazil strongly believes that if such actions are not taken, torture will be committed with impunity and victims can never seek justice.
And the delegate of Slovenia said, kill one to save a million, and he also said an eye for an eye. But what if a member of Slovenia was being tortured in another nation right now? Is that means enough for an eye for an eye? Torture is wrong, not just on a religious standpoint, but on a moral standpoint, on a political standpoint. It's international law that torture is wrong, so it's not just religious, it's political as well.
In the delegate's speech, could the delegate please mention other methods to obtain information?
I believe the delegate of Slovenia has just exhibited an example of obtaining information by asking a question.
House, please come to order.
This delegate would like to make his speech short. This delegate has been introduced to a new approach. Spies, well, this delegate feels that they take too long to infiltrate enemy headquarters. Threatening the individual, well, the suspects are willing to risk their lives and threatening them with what? Death? You're not afraid. And also, since they have committed to a cause, some of their causes cannot be moved, and therefore, torture is necessary at some occasions. Now, the incentives of torture. You have the ability to save lives. The incentives of being nice, death of our citizens, and the prosperity of our infidels. And since torture is a cheaper way, why not use it? Because isn't it better to use cheaper methods to receive the same result?
In a yes or no answer form, is the delegate aware that he's talking about inflicting pain on purpose on a person, which means violating that person's human rights in a human rights council?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please come to order.
Is the delegate suggesting that we use torture because it is the cheaper method?
Yes. Why use a much more expensive method? Slovenia is a country that does not have expensive resources like China, and therefore, since it is a cheaper way to get information, why not use it? And you're bound to get the same result anyways.
Another reminder to the House to always use parliamentary language.
Sorry, this delegate is extremely sorry.
Is the delegate of Slovenia not aware that China does practice cheap methods of torture?
This delegate would not like to anger the delegation of China at this moment.
Please come to order. Was there a point on the floor?
Yeah. Can the delegate please apologize for that statement?
You can leave the bench.